Christian Wood is becoming one of the most polarizing players in the entire NBA. I mean, how can a versatile 6'10 big man who averages an efficient 18-9 over the last 3 seasons currently be a free agent? Well, upon a deeper dive, I found that the answer is all too familiar.
Is that a big emphasis for you, showing a consistent motor? Because I know that's maybe something, scouts have questioned. And do you think that's a fair assessment?
Now, I'm not here to speculate on anybody's character, and I certainly never met Christian Wood, so for me to make assumptions about him as a person would honestly be quite up. But in order to learn as much as I can, I started by looking at his Draft Express profile from 2015. By many accounts, Christian Wood was slated to be a first-round pick. This article even elaborates. On paper, Wood should be drafted much higher than where he's currently slated in the 20s, and he is clearly a lottery-level talent with rare tools and impressive two-way potential. Now, of course, Wood went undrafted, and why is that? Well, this Draft Express report has a lot of interesting quotes, such as his body language leaves a lot to be desired, and it's not rare to see him jogging back on defense and getting beat down the floor. I also found another article from The Ringer.
How is that any different?
But fortunately, this isn't one of Bill Simmons' propaganda videos. If you want to see more on that, check out this video that I just posted a few days ago. But this 2020 article is from Goran Dragic, and it details the struggles of Wood going undrafted. One NBA executive was quoted saying, "Wood's story is one of a person finding himself, but it's also about how labels can be hard to shake. He was definitely a first-round talent coming out of college. Him going undrafted was all based on background intel." There was also a quote from Mike Peck, who coached Christian Wood back in high school, and he said, "It was his sense of urgency. One of the things I used to tell him is that we can't want it more for you than you do for yourself." Now, Wood even admits that he was an immature 19-year-old, and the article goes on to further detail just bad overall punctuality and poor decision-making, but I don't really find it necessary to further elaborate on that. I mean, I'm not like Malika Andrews, always bringing up the worst of people's past. But I did find this article from Bleacher Report in 2015 detailing some of the upcoming prospects' red flags. And with regards to Christian Wood, someone said, "As one NBA scout told me, in 5 years, he'll either be an NBA All-Star or out of the league. That may be hyperbole, but the point is that Wood is a big man with tremendous athleticism and the offensive ability to play inside and out. However, his motor and strength are 2 major red flags." Well, after going undrafted, Christian Wood did spend the next, Woodwood sounds weird. Christian Wood spent the next few years bouncing around between the G League and the Summer League, and even during that time, he'd end up in China, but eventually be cut from there too. About that, Christian Wood said, "Nobody wanted me. To get cut from a team in China because they told me I wasn't good enough, that really tested me. That was the breaking point." So that summer, Wood returned to Vegas where he worked with his trainer, Joe Abunassar. Now, his trainer noticed the difference in him. He said, Wood wasn't just showing up every day, but he was showing up on time. He did it so for more than 2 months. There were no trips back to LA and no procrastinating when it came to scheduling his workouts. So under a newfound work ethic and continued G League dominance, Christian Wood was eventually able to shed that label of lazy and immature. Then joined the Milwaukee Bucks, where he actually credits Giannis a lot for really inspiring him. I guess Wood bought into all that "there's no such thing as failure, just steps to success, blah blah blah" loser mentality that Giannis was spitting. But either way, it worked for Wood, and this was enough to get a public acknowledgement from Giannis on Twitter, where Giannis responded saying, "Love his work ethic. He's up next." So that helped him lead his first full-time role with the Detroit Pistons the following year. He averaged a very solid 13-6, and that set him up for a beautiful payday with the Houston Rockets, in which he signed for a 3-year, $41 million contract. And Christian Wood got off to a monster offensive start with the Rockets. I mean, he averaged over 20 points a game in his first season, but yet it was only a year later that he was traded to the Dallas Mavericks for some salary filler and the 26th pick in the draft. Now, why would an up-and-coming team in the Houston Rockets trade a 26-year-old putting up those kind of numbers? Well, Rahat Huck, who's a Houston Rockets journalist, detailed his thoughts about Christian Wood after he was traded to Dallas. He says, "But even worse than his defense was his attitude. I've said many times during the year that Wood was my second least favorite Rocket to watch in over 25 years following the team. He routinely pouted about touches, visibly displaying frustration when things didn't go his way. He refused to come back into the game after a halftime loss to the Denver Nuggets. In one early season game against the Golden State Warriors, Wood didn't attempt a single shot in the entire first half, seemingly hoping to deliver a message to his team. Before Wood signed with the Rockets, despite his obvious talents, the book on him was that he couldn't stick anywhere because of concerns over his attitude. Wood didn't do anything over the past 2 seasons to dispel that reputation, and if anything, he only reaffirmed it. And I know Dallas fans certainly share a similar sentiment about Wood after he was traded there and they finished 11th in the West, missing the play-in tournament entirely. But I began to get sad when reading about all this insight on Christian Wood because it reminded me of one of my favorite Heat players from back in high school and college. Hassan Whiteside was drafted to the Sacramento Kings in 2010, and just like Christian Wood, he spent the first few years of his career bouncing around the G League. He eventually ended up in Lebanon and a couple of stints in China before being waived from them too, also like Christian Wood. He would then return to the States where he would dominate in the G League with the Iowa Energy before signing with the Miami Heat. Now, I didn't really have to do a deep dive into this next part because, well, I lived it. I mean, Whiteside had a successful 2 seasons with the Heat where his 2K rating would jump from dead last at 59 overall all the way to 81 overall in his second year with the team. And then, of course, it was that offseason where Whiteside would re-sign with the Miami Heat on a 4-year, $98 million contract, completing the absolutely wild achievement of being the first player to go from a league minimum to a maximum contract the next year. And at the time, I was absolutely thrilled. I mean, Whiteside was my dude. He's still my dude. You know, I'm still a big fan of his, but at the time I was thrilled. There was a lot of rumors that he might go to Dallas or elsewhere, so I was really happy to see him re-sign, but unfortunately, that's where things started to sour. Now, it wasn't immediately, and his counting stats were certainly the best of his career, and with regards to rebounding and blocks, they were the best in the league at points. But that was the problem. He seemed to care more about his individual achievements instead of the team's success. And this is a sentiment, like Christian Wood, that seems to have followed Hassan Whiteside from college. He went to Marshall, where there was an assistant coach named Darren Tillis who said, Whiteside microwaved his 1 season of college ball. In 2015, he'd microwave again with the Miami Heat. Between those years, his stats mattered less than his reputation. Scouts told Tillis that Whiteside was out of shape, lazy, and not good enough in the D-League. Tillis would respond to scouts saying, good enough, the kid's almost a freak of nature. The book on Whiteside was that he's immature. Now, it's a vague critique, but it's almost fatal. And again, this is something very similar to what we heard on the scouting report for Christian Wood. The general feeling among Heat fans on Hassan Whiteside is that he got paid, got lazy, and didn't care anymore. And while I'm still a big fan of his, I can't acknowledge that there is some truth to that. I mean, I watched him pout on the bench in fourth quarters when Spoelstra wasn't playing him. I watched him irrationally leave his man wide open to chase down a weak side block that he had no chance of getting. I watched him leave the bench and head to the locker room before the games were even over. And now, just like Christian Wood, he remains a free agent. Now, there was reports that came out today saying the Chicago Bulls are interested in Christian Wood in addition to the Miami Heat and the Lakers. Of course, I wish him the best, and personally, I would like him here. I still think he'd be a great fit, but I feel the same way about Hassan Whiteside too. I understand that's not going to be a popular opinion, at least with regards to Whiteside, but my question is, why do all these Heat fans want Christian Wood but then don't want to give Whiteside another chance? And I understand a lot of people maybe didn't even know that about Christian Wood, but now if he remains unsigned or turns into a minimum player, at least now we have a little bit of idea why. But that's all I got for this video, man. Maybe Christian Wood wants to be here. He's just waiting for the whole Damian Lillard saga to get resolved. I don't really see how the two relate because I think the Heat could use Christian Wood with or without Dame, but we'll see how this whole process plays out. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and if you did not enjoy, you can leave a dislike because I can't tell you what to do. But actually, seriously though, let me emphasize, if you enjoyed, like the video, because I want as many people to see this as possible. I worked pretty hard on this video. I actually thought the results were pretty interesting. So if you did actually enjoy and want to help your boy out, you can subscribe and leave a like because I do greatly appreciate it. But that's truly all I got for this video. So I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.